Hey, this is Dan Negroni. I'm a results leader, and I want to share my thoughts with you.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
Yes, y'all. It's time once again for another episode of ResultsLeader.fm. Today's guest is a performance coach and a hyper growth CEO. You can feel this guy's energy. He's going to talk about telling better stories, making a greater impact, and being the best version of you. Let's jump in with our guest, Dan Negroni. Dan, welcome to the show, my man.
Well, thank you for having me this morning.
Yes, sir. Let's jump into this. Let's give our listeners a quick win. What book or books have you given most as a gift?
The book that is on my desk right now that I'm giving mostly as a gift is Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall. And I love it. I think it's probably one of the best business books I've ever read or listened to, because I like to listen to them.
All right. So tell me more. This is the first time I hear about it. How come you are so in love with this book?
I am in love with the book because I think the number one most important skill in life is, do you know what it is?
You're going to tell me.
Relationship building. And I believe that our brains are wired in a particular way to build relationships through storytelling. Neurologically, that's what we hear, that's what we retain. It's what makes us feel a certain way that we remember. And Kendra Hall does such an effortlessly, amazingly good job of telling and teaching how to tell your own story, no matter what category it is, and especially the story that is your value proposition to the world. So I love it. And I think there's probably not one more unique skill that a young or old person alike needs to connect.
I can dig it, man. So why don't you tell me a story of how an apparent failure set you up for later success?
Gosh, it's interesting. I can tell you a recent story, which has to do with COVID, which is probably pretty proximate and pretty at the top of people's thoughts is, we had a business where we were speakers around the world and we were going out there and our job was to be in front of people and our job was to really feel audiences, have them experience things, tell stories, facilitate workshops, get people to connect and get people to lead. And it really required presence. And obviously we can talk about how that's different and it's changed and it's probably made things better, but it required the presence of mind and the presence of wanting to connect and knowledge. And over the past year, that poof, disappeared. And so into a business which we grew for 5 years to be a really cool, comfortable, impact-based business, just the rug is pulled out from underneath you. How are you going to reinvent yourself? And so really, really sitting in, the power of discord, the pain of what will the world be like brings you to how do I bring something different to the world? How do I still make people feel present and get them to share and collect and inspire and motivate them if I am far away? And so we tried it through remote. And I think, the apparent failure was remote's not all going to work, but what could we do differently? We could give more. So we learned to give more remotely, more intimate, more one-offs, more smaller groups, things of that nature. And we also learned, okay, well, 2022 is going to come back and there's going to be speaking. Where do we need to pivot? And what was the failure of what we had done that we need to shift to do differently when the world reopens? And that's kind of the failure we're dealing with now, is how do we do it differently? Really create an impact. Instead of just going and speaking and creating a conference buzz, how do we create a lasting imprint and empower people to shift their behavior to really take away something that's meaningful?
Now, this is an interesting topic that you brought up because we've actually heard this on the show several times, is speaking to groups on Zoom or whatever you're using is not the same as being in person. And I heard you say give more. What do you mean exactly by give more to make that impact? What does that mean?
So yeah, I'm going to use a technical term here to describe speaking to groups over Zoom. It sucks. Okay, there's my term. And it sucks because a lot of the times people's screens, their backgrounds, they're doing other things, kids, the world has changed. What I say about giving more is when we were speaking before COVID, we were talking about the workplace of the future. And we were talking about how different it is and how we really needed to lean in to experience more so people could bring more of themselves and get more meaning and purpose and collaborate and build relationships. And the stats were this, I think 40% increase in depression in the workplace, 33% increase in anxiety related absences from work, right? Compound that with COVID and really what happened and the lost dollars. And what we found is okay, actually being away, we could be more efficient in certain things, but we need to figure out how to bring more to the party, which is we just can't do all the rote stuff. Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting, we get Zoom fatigue. We have to figure out how to give more of ourselves through storytelling, through asking questions, through giving ourselves a break, through creating a space where we might have, our pod or our peeps or our posse to talk to, asking deeper questions and be willing to answer deeper questions because the worker of the future, if I thought it was before the pandemic, it is here now. And people want to feel like they believe that they're safe in the workplace, like they belong to a team, and like they are becoming something. And so when I say work harder, each of us as human beings, each of us as leaders, even each of us as maybe the staff that may report to a leader needs to bring more and ask more and do more from ourselves and with others to connect and really find a way for it to be heard so we can make a difference together. That's what I mean. I don't know if that's clear enough or it sounds like gobbledygook, but it really is communicating better.
Yeah, I hear you saying it's a little bit tougher to connect, and now I can see why you're really into the storytelling because that just actually gets through all the gobbledygook and cuts right into somebody's mind when you can hook them with a story. So I can see why you're into that book and into that concept. Now, what would you say is the most worthwhile investment you have ever made?
Yeah, I would say the most worthwhile investment I ever made was in learning. And it's not an investment where I could say, look, I went to Georgetown Law School, I went to, you know, a great undergrad school, I did that. It's that I invested in the concept of trying to figure out how to learn from everyone and every experience I have. So if I'm buying an ice cream, if I'm being served by a server at a restaurant, if I'm sitting next to someone on an airplane, if I'm fortunate enough to be able to take my kids when they're younger or now when they're older and learn from their friends and have a conversation, the biggest investment with the biggest reward, which has helped me do what I do, which is help others be their best selves, is to really figure out how to learn and listen from every experience and every person I've ever met.
Which means you never stop learning, I suppose, eh?
Well, you never stop learning one about yourself. And that helps you because unless you understand yourself, it's really hard to help others. And I also think in life, what happens to you is because of you. And so learning is right the thing. So if you asked me last week, maybe 3 weeks ago, because this book has been hot for me for a while, what book was my favorite book, I might have had a different answer at that particular time. But it is the compounding of all of those books. You can see behind my Zoom, there's bookcases and bookcases of books. Whether it was whatever last or 2 weeks ago book was Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, which was The Art of Negotiating. And so it's just taking all those things, learning them, and then being able to serve them up to others in a way that helps that other person.
In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life, Dan?
Oh, God. I actually saw these questions. And so you think I would have the answers at the tip of my tongue. In the last 5 years, the there's another book that I read, which is called Breaking the Habit of Being You. And it's like breaking the habit of all your bull. And so I would say self reflection in a deep way, which I think the biggest premise is that I've learned over the past 5 years in that habit is it ain't about me. As much as I play that game and understand that game, and we're keynote speakers, and I understand sales, it's about what value I can bring to others. And I would say the biggest lesson in the past 5 years and the biggest habit has been that to break, which was how to stop being so self-focused. Because as Zig Ziglar said, if you can give everyone else what they want, you can get everything you want. And so I think it's the habit of just always thinking, which is human nature. What about me? What about me? What about me? Right? Like, what's in it for me? This survival thing. But if we can break that, there's just such a strong thing we can do as leaders and running teams and performance for businesses and in families and friends and so on and so forth.
What are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
Any recommendation without inquiry is a bad recommendation, right? To me, because the other principle in all the stuff that I'm talking about is how do you really understand what the audience wants and needs for them so they can be better? What's in it for them, not what's in it for me. And so you cannot understand what's in it for others unless you're kind of a soothsayer or a savant and you can understand immediately without asking questions of people and deep questions and great follow-up questions and really, really listening hard. And so to me, whether it's self, whether it's with others, the path to success is inquiry. So any friggin' advice to a particular person usually stinks. Because, right, as we say, take from me what works for you and throw away all the rest of the crap because it doesn't matter. It's only what works for that person. So that's kind of an overall look. I was a lawyer, so I give general answers, but that's probably, look, use inquiry if you want to give advice. And if someone's not asking you deep questions, then their advice is pretty much worthless because it's all about them.
I think we need to clip this and save it for the team. This is what I tell them all the time. I'm like, why are you trying to tell them how to fix that? Why don't we ask more questions? And most of the time, people will know how to fix what they need. So I love it, man. We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a public service announcement. We're going to get right back into this show, but I wanted to ask you a question. If you have been listening to the show for any amount of time and you've picked up even one single tip, then I need your help. Get the word out. Tell people about resultsleader.fm. Share it on social media. Share it on your email. Share it anywhere. #ResultsLeaderFM. Now let's jump back into the interview. So let's talk about results.
Yeah.
Why do results matter?
Yeah. I mean, impact matters, right? And I think action matters. And I think growth and becoming something requires a result, right, to get there. And so performance certainly matters, but performance without results is kind of like being an academic. And I don't mean that, right? It's like, if I want to learn something, I want to learn something that I can put to use. And the putting to use with all my clients is Dan taught me how to do this. This is what worked for me. This is what I got out of it. Because without the result, you don't have the story. You can't share. You can't teach. There's no value. And certainly we're in a capitalist society. So I don't want you to think that I'm some purist. I really understand. I am a growth coach, right? Like, it is about creating a result that matters, that makes a difference, that hits the bottom line for someone. And quantifying and qualifying those things are really critical because those are the lessons upon what you can build the future and the additional growth on. And that's, as human beings, that's what we're looking to do. That's why storytelling is so important, generation to generation, is what worked in the past, what's different now that it's in the future, what do we need to look at innovatively, and how are we going to get where we need to be? So, I mean, I just think, without results, who cares? Right? I mean, it's like, I hate to say it like that, but is that what I would say to my client is, so what? Like, what does that mean? They hate when I do that, but I love it. No, just kidding.
So speaking of your clients, in the last 5 years, what new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
Another good question. The simplicity and the basic nature of what we need to shift to create results when we're connecting with other human beings for communication. I mean, I love my clients that say, "Oh my God, Dan, that's so simple," but it's not easy. And when in my first real big success, where we had the opportunity to grow a business from 250 million to a billion, my partner, who was not college educated, I don't know if he even finished high school, would say to me all the time, "Dan," he had an accent, he was from the South, and I'm not doing it justice, "Dan, it's all simple. It just ain't easy." And there's nothing been truer than that. Is we overcomplicate the shit in our head and with our relationships, with in business. And the basics are people want to be cared about. They want to feel safe. They want to know you have their back. They want to belong to something and they want to grow. And most 99.9% of people are trusting and want to help and want to do something. So what we got to trust ourselves and trust them before we can get trust back. And so, these communicating, asking questions, demonstrating gratitude, asking permission to tell your opinion, and sharing opinions as experience instead of a judgment. These things are so friggin' simple, like ninth graders get it. And yet in the workplace, we step all over ourselves to not be able to adopt these things and we overcomplicate them. Whether you're doing sales, whether you're doing marketing, it's like, what is the simple, that book, Stories That Stick? What is the simple explosion, the value proposition you bring that's going to take the person from normal to new normal, going to solve their problems? It's so basically simple and we overcomplicate it. So the answer to your question is, how do I create the space between the stimulus and the response to really deduce those things down to its simplest form, so I can create a system that will work for everyone to create those results that we were talking about that matter?
Now, Dan, what area of your business would you like better results?
Yeah, I love that question. It's great. And, in the pandemic, we're really thinking about pivoting. I am lonely. I'm a lonely guy. I'm a solopreneur. We have a bunch of coaches, about 6 here that we work with. And I'm really a team guy and a business builder guy. And so I'm really trying to figure out how to pivot in a way to do coaching more for teams and more. So I'm in the thick of things with my clients that I'm involved. And so I'm looking at, is it fractional work, which I don't know at our level is the right thing? Is it interim work? Is there a new level of combining growth and performance and strategy in coaching and developing coaching systems for companies that I could give to them that would get me out of being so lonely? So I need more friends. No, I think that's probably the biggest challenge we have for ourselves, for me now personally, which is how do I get, probably COVID has something to do with it, around more people and more engaged and more accountable for working with that team and getting their growth.
What results are you most proud of?
Um, Probably being known for someone to be someone that tirelessly is the guy that cares about creating impact for the other person. Like, will sit there question after question, will always be trying to figure out how to help. And sometimes it's annoying, and some people don't want it, and some people don't like it. I mean, ask my wife, after 36 years, she's certainly had enough of it. And to the point where I now have to say to her, "Hey, honey, do you just want me to listen to you, or do you want me to help you solve the problem?" And so sometimes people just not at the time where they can solve the problem, but being known as the dude that if you got a problem, he'll help you figure it out is critical to me. Absolutely critical.
Any parting thoughts you want to share with the results leaders out there?
Every athlete needs a coach. Every athlete needs someone to speak with. And it's not a sign of weakness. If your employer or if the system is providing that for you, then take advantage of it and don't see it as a negative. And more importantly, for those leaders out there that want results, put a dang coaching system in place where all of your worker athletes have the ability to call someone up on demand and get help to completely motivate them, innovate them, or shift their mindset immediately, because that is the single best thing you can do, is provide a system where they have someone to listen to them and also push back on them to help them figure out how to create the impact they want to, because 99% of the time they do, and you don't have the right system in place to do that.
Loving it. Loving it, man. Thank you so much, Dan. This has been a real treat. Now, I know that our listeners are going to want more from you. So where can they go?
Yeah, they can go to our corporate website. Our business is called Launchbox 365. So it's launch as in rocket ship launch, box as in toolbox, 365 every day of the year.com, or dannegroni.com for our speaking. Yeah, they'll find our number. They can call us. We want to help. Give us a shot.
Excellent, man. So it has been a treat. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, results leaders, for tuning in. And of course, we will share links to Dan on the show notes to make sure that you can reach out and connect with him. We will be back in your earbuds next time. That is a wrap for another edition of resultsleader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to resultsleader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.